Hello and welcome. I'm Sam Califer, your host for Vision, the show where we talk all about the College of Arts and Sciences as well as its faculty and students. Today I'm joined by Dr. Jesse Goliath, a forensic anthropologist and assistant professor in the Department of Anthropology and Middle Eastern Cultures. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on and talk about all the work you do. But first, I was hoping you could just introduce yourself. Tell me about your academic career and how you first got interested in forensics.
Sure. So, grew up in West Virginia, and after going from West Virginia, went to the University of Notre Dame for my undergrad. Took some time between undergrad and grad to work for the West Virginia State Police Crime Lab. Had kind of did DNA lab bench work for a little bit, and then got my master's and PhD at The Ohio State University. And after that, decided to move to Hawaii, where I worked with the DPAA, or Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. And that's pretty much in charge of locating and recovering lost service members. And so worked there for a couple of years and ended up here at Mississippi State University.
Sure, yeah, well, I'm so happy you could be here and bring your specific set of skills. It's scientific, forensic anthropology, but you have a lot of background with working with these law enforcement agencies. And so such an important, gap to fill for us. And speaking of your work with, law enforcement agencies, I wanted to have you on because you've been working diligently here for a while now, and you have a new project that's just launched. It's called the Mississippi Repository for Missing and Unidentified Persons. So can you tell me a bit about that project and what its goals are?
Sure. So the repository is, first off, it's a clearinghouse. So it's a storage area for any missing unidentified people in Mississippi. And so the ultimate goal is to help identify, resolve, and archive that missing person's information. But really, it's just getting the public access to this information, because a lot of it is on different social media pages and platforms and different law enforcement agencies. But this is really a one-stop shop, and you can look at missing individuals, maybe even connecting lost loved ones that you may want to showcase or talk about.
That is such important work, and I'm sure that comes from your background and doing this kind of work. But what first prompted you to take on this work?
Well, in general, when we look across the nation, there's a lot of missing people, especially those who are BIPOC or Black, Indigenous people of color. And so really, this is a nationwide crisis. And so kind of focusing specifically on a rural state like Mississippi, trying to get at who's missing in the state and where they end up. Do they actually end up being recovered alive or sadly deceased? Because as a last responder, I end up on a lot of these cases if they are found deceased. And so trying to put myself out of a job a little bit and finding these people sooner and bring them back to their families.
And is the missing and unidentified persons, especially of people of color, isn't that particularly bad here in the South?
It is, because there are a lot of other systemic factors. So there's already health issues, health disparities, where there's not a lot of hospitals. We have food deserts in the state of Mississippi. And so there's just not other infrastructure to help with people, usually people of color in these poorer regions. And law enforcement don't have the budgets in some of these smaller counties and towns.
Sure, yeah, and so, when there's just not that infrastructure, and especially a lot of the state is so rural, and so people go missing, and the work doesn't get started as quick as it should, and people fall through the cracks. And so I'm so glad that you could see that gap and try to fill it with this project. And so while you were, you saw the problem and you're trying to come up with ways to fix it, do other states have like a similar database, and what kind of impact has it had to solve these cases?
Sure. So in general, there's a national database. It's called NamUs. NamUs doesn't have any mandatory reporting, and so a lot of agencies don't necessarily put that information into NamUs. There are many states that have a clearinghouse, but it's not actually connecting those bigger questions of what are other factors keeping these people from being recovered. And so that's why the Mississippi Repository is different, in that it is a clearinghouse, but also is looking at these health disparities and socioeconomic disparities as well.
Sure. So when you say it looks at those disparities, how is it doing that?
So we're actually going to be using geospatial analysis. So we're pretty much, it's a giant map of the state of Mississippi. We can tell you where people go missing, and then from those hotspots or clusters, we could then see what are other factors that are in those same regions. Are these the same areas where a lot of people go missing? Are they thoroughfares or major travel destinations? Are they major highways? And then ultimately, are they health desert areas in terms of hospitals and or other infrastructure.
Interesting. Yeah, so you're looking at the trends.
Exactly.
Trying to find what is causing.
And almost kind of overlapping that data is that instead of just looking at health issues or food deserts, how does that actually all compound on each other with missing persons data?
Wow. And so, yeah, that really, I think being able to analyze the trends and make hypotheses of what's going on, it stands like to benefit so much. And so speaking of that, yeah, I mean, how do you see everyday citizens and law enforcement using this, and how does it benefit them when they're trying to access this database?
Well, I think the issue with missing persons is that there's a lack of awareness of missing people. And so just having another place that people can look in their counties, in their cities, of who is missing in their towns. Also, law enforcement sometimes don't necessarily communicate with each other very well across agencies. And so this is another centralized location where law enforcement agents, district attorneys, any type of medical legal people can look at information regarding cases that they've worked on in the past or potential connections between cases if there's circumstantial evidence that may connect a tattoo or any other type of features that we could search in the database to help them map a person who's missing to even unidentified bodies or remains.
Sure. Yeah, and so especially in these rural areas, I think just people are so busy trying to solve other cases and with their everyday lives and work, there's no central place to post this. And so it might be posted somewhere, but you're not going to go to a random Facebook page. And
exactly. And even those Facebook pages sometimes come down, or just due to bandwidth, some resources aren't available to certain agencies to even have someone to post on a regular basis. Or if someone is found alive, to even post that information. So people are wondering, is so-and-so still missing in their county? And there's just no information to actually confirm that.
Sure. So if someone, unfortunately, if they knew of a missing person, could they go and load that information up?
Yeah, they can easily, on our website itself, there's a contact us form, and it'll immediately ping to us at our website and our email at missinginms@msstate.edu, and we'll be happy to help them fill in information, spread their case to other known agencies and social media platforms.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's not just for, trying to find somebody. If you know someone's missing, you can put your information on there, and that's how you contribute. I think just having everyone's eyes at the same place, and someone else might see that profile and be able to contact, and it's just that one tip could lead to someone being found. And so important, I think, just having all of that information in the same place. That's just so great. And I wanted to talk a bit about I know you have a lot of history working with law enforcement, and that's something I find interesting about forensic anthropologists. That career, because there's such a hands-on kind of aspect to it. And so, when you're working with law enforcement, what kind of services do you provide, and why is that collaboration so important?
Well, the thing is, for forensic anthropologists, we are public health experts. We are also community engaged. And so a lot of the work with missing persons is community engagement, having people be able to access the website, communicate with us. But in general, with law enforcement, usually there's kind of really major questions they'll ask is this bone? Is this human or non-human? Is it forensically relevant? So what's forensically relevant is anything that's younger than 50 years of age. So anything past that or older than that would be considered archaeological. And so those are three main questions. And then after that, what are the circumstances surrounding their death? Was this a burial? Was this scattered remains? Is this person totally decomposed or fully fleshed? Any of those contexts to help them give clues to potentially linking a suspect and a victim to a crime scene.
Right, yeah, and I think, you give that scientific background and can offer more definite answers, and so that's so important when you're trying to solve a crime or, pursue an individual, to have all the facts straight. And that's something that, especially a law enforcement office in a rural place, they don't have that expertise themselves. And so having someone to work with them and give them those definite answers, I think just helps the legal system work in a better way, in a more fair way.
In terms of, we also help with burials. If there are individual crime scene that this individual may be buried, we have archaeological experience with burials, and so we're usually called out on a lot of those as well. So if there is a burial or potential remains that are buried under unknown circumstances, we can help give them context to how this person may have been buried. Are there tools like shovels or any kind of implementation they use to bury individuals? And so not only just kind of is there remains and are they human, but really a lot more of what potentially happened in the scene.
Sure, give them that important information, like how did this bone break, or what caused it, or was it before or after death, and that helps them piece together the puzzle. Yeah, and I think people have a general idea of what forensic anthropology is from like TV shows like CSI Miami, and maybe some of that's true, but I know that it's not entirely accurate. But I think a lot of people might live vicariously through you and your career, and so yeah, I'm just so glad we could come together and talk about all of this today.
Yeah, thank you for having me and be able to showcase the Mississippi repository.
Yes, definitely, and I think it's so important, and if you know anyone who's missing, please get in contact with Dr. Goliath or visit the website. You know, it's for citizens of Mississippi to help them, and so take advantage of that. But thank you so much to Dr. Goliath for joining me today, and thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Vision. We'll see you next time.